So I am going to get started because we have a really phenomenal program tonight. Before I introduce Sébastien Dutton, who many of you met before, because he gave a wonderful speech about the hardware at the breakers, I do want to remind everyone that on August 5th, we are doing a collaboration with Hillwood Estate Museum and Gardens, a lecture entitled New Discoveries about Hillwood's collection presented by Rebecca Tillis. And if you are interested in that lecture, and this is a wonderful collaboration between our two museums, go to our website, go to the events calendar, and you will click on New Discoveries about Hillwood's collection. That will direct you to their registration page, and you will get more information. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that on Thursday, August 27th, we will be hosting the John Winslow Lecture, and it will feature Power, Privilege, and Preservation, the History of African American Civil Rights in Newport, Rhode Island. The two lecturers will be Teresa and Keith Stokes of the 1696 Heritage Group and the Rhode Island Black Heritage Society. Both Keith and Teresa are scholars when it comes to African American history in this state. Keith's family is one of the oldest families in Newport. We are very fortunate because he has collected over the decades many, many family papers, memories, stories. The two of them gave a speech several years ago. It was standing room only, so I hope you will tune in. If you are interested in hearing Keith and Teresa, please RSVP to program RSVP@newportmansions.org and tell in the subject line that you are interested in the Winslow Lecture. And again, that is August 27th, 5:30 by Zoom. Tonight, we are featuring Sébastien Dutton, who is a fellow with the Preservation Society. He is the Eaddo H and Peter D. Kiernan Lecturer for the year. And his lecture is called Let's Get Digital, Exploring and Sharing the Third Floor of the Breakers Through Technology. Sébastien has done all of the virtual tours that are online of most of the houses. We were really fortunate to bring him on as a fellow, and I want to announce that we're very lucky because he is going to stay on for a second year as a fellow with us. He received his MA in Historic Preservation from Boston Architectural College, where he focused on Gilded Age America, and he says that one of his inspirations was the Preservation Society properties. He earned his BA from Oklahoma Baptist University in Business Administration and French, and he received 3 consecutive scholarships to attend the Newport Symposium. We are very, very honored to have the really great technical and technological expertise of Sébastien with us tonight. Very few people have seen the third floor of the breakers. It was occupied until very recently by Vanderbilt family members, until a study was done, architectural and engineering study done, that discovered that not only was the plumbing for the building in poor shape, as was the electrical, and it was deemed imperative by our Board of Trustees that the building had to be vacated. The kind of restoration work that was needed would be way beyond the abilities of the Preservation Society, would have done damage to the building. And at the same time, if there had ever been a leak, it was right above the Great Hall, so it would have done some terrible, terrible damage. So this is really the first time that the third floor has been unveiled. And I think you will find this space glorious, almost as glorious as the second and first floor. So with that, I want to turn it over to Sébastien. Thank you for your hard work on this. Let me just also tell all of you that we are still unsure about how we want to use the third floor in the future. I think that John Leboutillier, a Vanderbilt family member, is leading an effort to do a oral history of family members so that we can learn more about how the building was used over the past. And all of these are still pieces of the puzzle. So we look to all of you to add to our knowledge. And the first person adding to that is Sébastien and the work that he has done. So welcome, Sébastien. We really are looking forward to tonight's lecture and all the work that you have done thus far.
So thank you so much. So let me share my screen here. So I'd like to begin by thanking the Preservation Society's Executive Director and CEO, Trudy Cox, Preservation Society's Chairman of the Board, Monty Burnham, and Eaddo H and Peter D. Kiernan, for whom the lecture is named and who made this possible. So my lecture is titled, Let's Get Digital. So kind of imagine it to the beat of Let's Get Physical by Olivia Newton-John, because it's not only about the third floor of the breakers and being able to share that virtually, but also about bringing all of the houses and experiences the Preservation Society offers to the digital world. This wasn't the original intent of the fellowship necessarily. With the closing of the houses due to the ongoing pandemic, opportunities for research visits disappeared. However, opportunity to spend time in our houses when they were completely empty of guests became possible, and out of necessity, my focus switched. And so I know y'all are here to see the breaker's third floor, but before I get to it, I'm going to walk you through the thought process behind going virtual, how it was done, and I'll give brief overviews of what we were able to accomplish here with our other houses. So my biggest purpose behind going virtual is to provide accessibility, education, and experiences. And when I say accessibility, I mean it in a very multifaceted way. Our homes are old, with Hunter House dating back to the 18th century. And as anyone who knows about old homes knows, they have lots of stairs and in most cases, 0 elevators. So it's not always possible for everyone to access every house or space as a result. On top of that, COVID-19 happened and suddenly accessibility went to 0 for everyone, regardless of the ability to climb stairs. Travel came to a standstill for most people around the world, and those who would normally visit on vacation or stop while on a cruise were no longer able to do so. And while we've partially reopened, it's still not feasible for many to visit just yet. So virtual tours give people that opportunity no matter where they are in the world. As long as they have a phone or tablet or computer, they can walk through our houses. And in some cases, like the third floor of Chateau Cirmare, which you can see in the top left image and the top right image, they're able to visit spaces that are never open for in-person tours. If you have a VR headset, you can tour them in virtual reality, about as close as you can get to the real thing. Another one of the benefits to the virtual tours that may not be immediately apparent is that there are no ropes to be found. So they're gone and you're able to move through the spaces in ways that you couldn't do in person, enabling you to get closer to objects, see rooms and spaces from different perspectives, and understand them spatially in a new way. For instance, the image in the center at the bottom is the second floor living room of the Elms, where normally you can only view the room from the other side where the doors are looking towards it. So it really lets you see spaces in a completely different way. So going virtual enables to share additional stories and information, which really benefits everyone. So I'm going to go into how the process works and what I use to do it all. So I use the Matterport system, which is probably familiar to anybody in the real estate market. So if you've been looking at houses for sale and saw a virtual tour option, chances are it was a Matterport tour. The system is compatible with multiple 360-degree cameras now, but the one that I used is their proprietary camera that has an array of infrared sensors that capture depth data combined with glass lenses for images. So the camera rotates on the tripod, capturing images and data, which is controlled by and displayed on an iPad. In the bottom left image, you can see the camera mounted on the tripod in one of the rooms at the Elms during scanning. You look at the top left and bottom right images, you'll see what it looks like as you're scanning. So each blue circle represents a scan, which takes about 30 seconds to complete. And for reference, the tour of the Elms has 875 scan points. So you move through the space, capturing everything you want to be included in the model, and you mark every window and mirror in the space you're scanning so that when the model is being processed, it knows to remove or compensate for the excess or reflected depth data. And so in the top left image, you can see all the little black circles, and where it says inside or front, those are all of the windows and all of the mirrors that I marked on that particular floor. So once this is done, you upload the model to Matterport, where it's processed in the cloud and completed in 24 to 48 hours. When this is complete, the virtual tour is technically ready to share. Before doing that, however, it's time to edit, so you hide excess scans or ones that you don't want visitors to be able to navigate to. And this is also when you can add in interpretation and information into the virtual tour, which can be text, photos, audio, or video. And using Matterport, you're also able to generate floor plans of the scanned space with measurements accurate to within 1% of reality. And another cool feature is it creates a dollhouse view of the space, which you can see a thumbnail of in the bottom center. And that can be moved around and manipulated to view the different floors and the overall shape and layout of the scanned space. So during the closure of our houses, I was actually able to create virtual tours for most of them. And so I know that many of you watching have visited our houses either in person or virtually or both, but I'm going to briefly take us through the houses that have been digitized. So I've broken them into two groups, with the first group including the Elms, Marble House, and Chateau Cirmare. So these images show the starting point of each tour, and the images were taken from the tour itself, giving you an idea about the visual clarity of the tours as well as the content that can be pulled from them. So starting with the Elms was completed in 1901. It was built for Mr. and Mrs. Edward Julius Berwind and designed by architect Horace Trumbauer. The Preservation Society acquired and opened the house in 1962. I also created a virtual version of the Servant Life tour at the Elms. So this tour takes guests behind the scenes from the sub-basement all the way up to the rooftop, looking out across the lawn. Showing the inner workings of the house from the servant's point of view. Marble House. So Marble House was completed in 1892. It was built for Mrs. Alva Vanderbilt and Mr. William K. Vanderbilt and designed by architect Richard Morris Hunt. And lastly, of these first four, we have Chateau Cirmare. So Chateau Cirmare was completed in 1852 with later additions. It was built for William Shepherd Wetmore, and the original architect was Seth Bradford. The 1873 and 1880 additions were designed by Richard Morris Hunt. The main tours of these houses all have information inserted in them with the help of Lauren Landy, our digitization specialist, giving you information about the furnishings, artwork, and objects throughout. So the second group of homes are Kingscote, Chepstow, Hunter House, which is the Preservation Society's first house, and Isaac Bell House. So these tours are all complete, but they don't yet have object information added in. So here you can see the starting point of each of those tours and then the reflected ceiling plan images. So essentially if you were looking straight down from the ceiling at any of the rooms. So since the launch of our first virtual tour, we have had over 390,000 impressions. So that is people visiting a page where one of the tours is posted or embedded, and over 74,000 visits, which are counted when somebody clicks play to begin the tour. So one aspect of accessibility that was important to me at the start of my fellowship was creating a record of our exhibitions at Rosecliff. So much work goes into these exhibitions that are only seen for a few months at a time, and it was my hope to create a digital twin of them so they can continue to live on long after they've been packed up. So I was lucky to have 3 different exhibitions run during my fellowship. John James Audubon, Obsession Untamed, Tiffany Glass, Painting with Color and Light, and our current exhibition, Becoming Vanderbilt. John James Audubon, Obsession Untamed, ran from March 30th to November 3rd, 2019. This exhibition explored the naturalist's relentless pursuit of the birds of America and his singular determination in seeing his beautiful artworks published. So with this exhibition, I was able to integrate the audio portion from the in-person tour into the virtual tour as well. Tiffany Glass, Painting with Color and Light, ran from December 8th, 2019 to February 29th, 2020. Organized by the New Stock Collection of Tiffany Glass in New York City, this exhibition was comprised of 5 windows, 19 lamps, and more than 100 pieces of opalescent flat glass and glass jewels. Our current exhibition, Becoming Vanderbilt, officially debuted on May 28th, 2020. This exhibition shines a light on 4 amazing women tied to Newport and our houses, from Alice Gwynn Vanderbilt's philanthropy to her daughter Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney's work as a patron, artist, and museum founder, to Alva Vanderbilt Belmont's advocacy on behalf of women's suffrage and her daughter Consuelo Vanderbilt's benevolence. This exhibition honors the legacy of these extraordinary women. And what set this exhibition apart from the previous 2 is that it both debuted as and is currently only available virtually. Its originally scheduled opening was in March, which became impossible with the closure of Rosecliff. However, knowing that this was to be unveiled virtually, I was able to work with Ashley Householder, our former curator of exhibitions, to capture detailed photographs of the objects in the exhibition and to tailor it to present as beautifully as possible in a virtual space. So I absolutely love this exhibition. It's really amazing, and anybody who has not seen it should definitely check it out. All of our tours of the houses and the exhibition tours can be seen on our website at newportmansions.org. With the houses being closed to visitors, I also worked with our special events department to design a tour of Rosecliff for them that could be used to do a remote virtual walkthrough of the house with potential wedding clients, showing them the space and what could be done with it. So here you can see screenshots from the tour. In the individual rooms, there were tags inserted that you can click on that shows what the room looked like at a wedding to help you with, visualization of that space. So with all of that, it brings us to what y'all are here to see, the Breakers' 3rd floor apartment. So first, I'm going to start with a brief history of the house for those who are unaware of the specifics. First, I'm going to take a drink of water. So the Breakers was completed in 1895 and officially opened 125 years ago this next month. It was designed by architect Richard Morris Hunt for Alice and Cornelius Vanderbilt after their first house of the same name burnt down. In the 125 years that have since passed, the 3rd floor has never been open to visitors before. After the Breakers opened to the public in 1948, Countess Sashani, daughter of Alice and Cornelius, kept a residence on the 3rd floor of the Breakers, an arrangement that continued and was passed through to her children and grandchildren until 2018. And the family really was an amazing steward of the space during that time, as you'll soon see. So the gross internal area of the 3rd floor apartment is just under 11,000 square feet. The floor plan you see here, which is still slowly loading, including measurements, was generated using the data captured from the creation of the virtual tour. So at present, it includes 7 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a kitchen, a cedar closet, and a large living room with additional dressing rooms and linen closets. According to an unpublished memoir by Countess Anthony Zipari, the 3rd floor was originally planned to be and was called the boys' floor. All 3 of Alice and Cornelius' sons, Neely, Alfred, and Reginald, who was Gloria Vanderbilt's father, just for reference, the rooms were located here when the house first opened. The rooms are the ones shaded in green on the floor plan. The living room at the top was originally designed as a bedroom. Documentation is unclear whether it was ever used as such. And the rooms shaded in yellow were guest rooms, although as you'll see in the tour itself, they don't all remain as such today. So after the brothers grew up and out of the Breakers, the youngest Reginald was 15 when the house was completed. The 3rd floor remained largely empty and unused for years with the furniture slipcover. When the Preservation Society opened the house in 1948 and the family moved to the 3rd floor, conversions to some of the spaces were made to accommodate the new living arrangements. The second and third floor of the breakers were designed by Ogden Codman, an American interior designer and architect who, along with Edith Wharton, co-wrote the seminal interior design book, The Decoration of Houses, first published in 1897, with the concepts mentioned in the book honed and perfected while doing the breakers. And before going to the virtual walkthrough, I'm going to point out a few things of note in some of the rooms. Bedroom 17, originally labeled bedroom number 12 in Codman's drawings, was one of the guest rooms on the third floor. So looking at the images of the space next to the original drawings, you'll immediately notice that not only was it built almost exactly to the drawing, but it remains essentially unaltered from it today. Codman's drawings included not only the paneling, but also the wood carving and fireplace mantel details. Really, the only thing left to interpretation were the fabric wall coverings, which he charmingly labeled stuff in his drawings. The bathroom between rooms 16 and 17 is very similar in design to the bathroom on the floor directly below, with the bathtub in a marble cove and the sink and toilets and closets to the left and the right. The lower images show the second floor version next to the third. The size and scale is the same, with the largest change being ceiling height. And one of my favorite details in the room is the note taped to the wall in the toilet closet, which reads, "Please pull chain gently until water starts running. Count to 5, let go of chain gently." And these notes were somewhat necessary because, as Trudy mentioned, the plumbing in the third floor that they were using was the original plumbing the house was designed and completed with in 1895. Moving on to room 16. So originally labeled bedroom number 11, it's a departure from the previous bedroom. Gone is the cream colored paneling, and instead we have a natural wood finish. And again, you can see the drawing by Codman of the space that was beautifully executed, with one exception. This room was designed with an intricate Parquet de Versailles floor in quartered oak. As built, it has a still beautiful but much simpler in design chevron pattern wood floor. Here you can also see two original drawings of furnishings by A.H. Davenport, the firm who designed nearly all of the furniture found on the third floor, along with the finished pieces. For background, A.H. Davenport was a prominent furniture maker during the late 19th and early 20th century. Their work can also be seen in the White House, the New York State Capitol, the Massachusetts State House, and many other notable buildings. A mystery that is to be solved, hopefully, when the institutions open back up for research, is the timeline of the third floor furniture. The drawings indicate 1907, which is actually 12 years after the completion of the house. The next room that we're looking at is the bathroom / dressing room between bedroom 14 and the living room. Again, the parquet flooring was not installed as drawn, instead going with the same chevron pattern found in the other rooms. But this other room was otherwise built exactly as designed. This layout also mirrors that of the floor below, including featuring a carved arch separating the dressing room and bathroom portions of the room. And the last room we're going to look at before jumping into the tour itself is bedroom number 11. So the first thing that stands out is the wall covering, now a dark orange tinged chintz. As you can see on the footboard, it was once a white color. The appearance would have been not dissimilar to what Gertrude's bedroom looks like on the floor below. The chintz is not original to the room, and on the walkthrough, you'll see a similar material in bedroom 13. The covering dates to the early 20th century, and the darkened brittle condition is typical of glazed cotton that has been exposed to light for long periods of time. At the top, you'll see another design drawing by A.H. Davenport of a bureau with the furniture piece as built next to it. So now let's explore the rest of the space. Okay, so before I begin the walkthrough itself, I'm going to give an overview of the path I'm going to be taking, provide context to how the space is situated in relation to the rest of the house, and explain what some of the things that you may notice as we move through the space are. So for the path, I'll be starting here, which is where that image just showed, looking out into the servant space. Enter into this kitchen / bathroom, and then winding through all of these bedrooms, bathrooms, and dressing rooms, which are all connected, making our way to the living room, back into this hallway, down the hall, around, up onto the landing, around through the Cedar Closet, through room 11 into this bathroom, back through these rooms, and returning where I started. So as far as context for how this sits within the house, it's nearly identical to the floor below, except Mrs. Vanderbilt's bedroom is replaced by bedrooms 14 and 15 and a terrace. So on the floor below, Mrs. Vanderbilt's bedroom actually comes out right here, curves around, because the bedroom's in a oval shape. So it's just underneath these two with bathrooms and dressing rooms on either side. On this upper level, there are doors that open up here that lead out onto a terrace in the shape of the outer curve of her bedroom. So the 15-16 bath, so this bathroom here, is above a dressing room. Bedroom 16, which is this one here, is over Mr. Vanderbilt's bedroom on the floor below. The living room is over Gertrude's bedroom. And then this entire section here, this landing and these bedrooms are directly above the Great Hall. And then in this space you see here that's grayed out, this is the light tunnel for the skylight that illuminates the Lafarge stained glass above the grand staircase. Another thing that you probably notice are all of these little colored circles. I'd hovered over some of them as I was moving the mouse around. So those are Matterport tags that have been inserted into the model to provide additional information and images about the space. And so the colors mean different things. So any circle you see that is red is going to be a piece of furniture in the house or in the apartment. Pink circles give glimpses into drawers or inside cabinets or of little labels. So things that you wouldn't normally notice or be able to see clearly in a virtual tour or even walking through the house in person. Green circles are objects in the space. So vases, artwork, paintings, pictures on the wall. Blue circles are examples of a room's unfaded original wall covering color. That will make more sense as I'm walking through the space with you. And then yellow circles are images of similar rooms from floors below. So I'll try not to make y'all too motion sick as I move around through here. So we're starting the tour looking out into the servants' wing. So if you're touring the house in person, you take these stairs at the end of the tour on a lower level to get down to the basement where the gift shop and exit are located. The main kitchen that the family used during their time here is just beyond these doors to the left, which you can see in an image here, in what was once a servant's bedroom. So you would exit this door right here, take a right, go around the stairs, and then you would be back at this entrance. So now we'll continue on to the first room. So what we have here was originally a bathroom, but the family converted it to a small galley kitchen shortly after the house opened to the public in 1948. In the cabinets here, you can see that there's still some of the glasses and labels, what was originally in there. And for instance, this lower one is mentioning original china for the servants, what not to use. And then if we come over here, just to provide a little context, you can see the exit gate of the breakers within that circle there. So one thing that I find really fascinating about this space is that, and that what really speaks to the family's efforts to keep the space as original as possible, is the fact they actually kept the bathtub and toilet in this room when they converted it from the bathroom to the kitchen. So rather than gutting the whole space, they just walled off this section. So I'm going to move on. As we move into this small passage between the bathroom, kitchen, and the next room, you'll notice a light fixture on the wall. This fixture can be found throughout the third floor apartment and elsewhere in the house, including the staircase that you use on the in-person tour to go from the first floor to the second. So we're now in what was once bedroom number 18. This room was converted to a dining room when the family moved up to the third floor. The clock on the mantle is by Henri Desson, who was a renowned 19th century Parisian furniture maker who actually ceased production in 1894, 1 year before the Breakers was completed. The dining room furniture that you see here was originally found on the lower loggia. So in the morning room on the first floor, back on one of the far walls, a little bit difficult to see on the tour, there's actually a picture from 1936 where you can see this dining room set in place there. In the closet here, there are more original labels attached to the shelves and walls stating what was in here and where it belonged. So just a little example, 12 Copeland soup plates. So I'm going to point down here. This room was originally carpeted, and there are a few things here that lead me to that conclusion. First, the flooring pattern is rather simple. It's not in a chevron pattern like I showed you in some of the rooms earlier before I started the tour. And second, when you look around the base of the room, you can see the little holes along the baseboard where the carpet was originally secured to the flooring. And third, none of the Ogden Codman drawings included the flooring design for the rooms that were carpeted, but he did include them for every room that has patterned flooring. The walls were originally a rust red color, and if you look at the valance panel above the window, you can get an idea of what that originally looked like. So moving into bedroom 17, the layout of this guest room mirrors that of the guest room on the floor below, including the arched section connecting the two closets. This is one of the rooms that I discussed during the main presentation. The clock on the mantle is by Tiffany and Co. And then I'm going to come over here, show you inside one of the closets. So the walls in this room were originally a rust red color, similar to the room before, the one I showed you, bedroom number 18. And you can see an unfaded version of the original color here. So this room was also originally carpeted. You can tell, again, the markings along the baseboard and also the pattern of the flooring itself. So now we're going to continue on into the bathroom that I showed you before the tour began. And so we'll start out here. If you look out the window here, you can see the main entrance gates of the Breakers, again, to help orient you to where we are in the house. So if you've toured the Breakers before, again, you'll recognize this design is very similar to the floor below. One thing that I found super fascinating is that all of the sinks here on the third floor, when you look underneath them, have markings of the plumbers who've worked on the house over the years, with the one in this particular bathroom dating back to 1897. You can also see the name Vanderbilt written under the sink. This bathroom was also originally carpeted, which would have been an interesting look. And then this is the toilet closet where you can see the note that I discussed before, taped up to the wall. And then moving around here is another one of Davenport designs with the drawing of it. And these drawings were all found at Historic New England. So we are now in bedroom number 16. So I'll just pan around here real quick to show you that. Behind the door is a chair, which is again one of the chairs I showed in the presentation before the tour. And then it may be a little bit hard to envision it right now with the walls brown, but they were originally a dark blue color, which you can see here. This is a pillow roll that's found in the Cedar Closet. So the room would have had a very different look and feel with the walls this original blue color. Again, this bed is one of the ones from that I showed earlier by Davenport, the drawing. And when you look across the room, these doors all open up onto a small Juliet-style balcony that looks out towards Ochre Point Avenue. You can also see, for instance, in the corner over here, where there were pictures that had been hanging on the wall when the family was in residence, and the walls still retain some of their blue color. And if you're wondering what's inside the armoire, it's not really that exciting, but there you are. So on the floor below this bathroom is a dressing room in this location. In this photo, however, it's of one of the bathrooms on the second floor that shares a similar layout. And so an interesting thing to note is that most of the bathrooms on the second floor contain sitz baths, which is what this little thing here is, but none of them on the third floor do. Again, another one of the under the sink notes left by previous workers, this one 1903. So we are now entering into bedroom 15. So I'm going to start out in the closet, which is hidden behind this jib door here. So you'll notice there are labels on these drawers below. So I'll click on this one to expand it. The family kept everything very organized, and labels are found in drawers and shelves throughout the third floor. So each one of these drawers was labeled with what was originally in the drawer. They're all completely empty now. So this bedside table here, it belongs actually to bedroom 16. You'll notice that the marble on top doesn't match that of the rest of this room, even though the style of the piece itself is similar. And here on the wall, you can see to preserve the original color. I'm going to click here. And so here's what it looks like completely unfaded. Again, the room would have had a little bit different feel. Also, I'm getting a little, my internet connection is unstable. So if you see something not loading, it may take a minute. And over here is another Davenport piece with the original drawing on top, as built below. We're going to continue on with a closet here. So you can see inside that looks very similar to all of the other closets. But my favorite little thing in this room is actually on this piece. There is a little tag here that still has, it's still in the space, that has Countess Shashani's name on it from a warehouse from a storage space that she had. So there are lots of these little articles and items and reminders of previous inhabitants throughout the space, which I love. So moving on to bedroom 14. So there are a couple of things in this room. I'll just actually pan around. So there are a couple of things in this room that may stand out to you. Let me just do a full little pan around the space. So the first thing is this dresser. So you'll notice it is in a different style and a completely different finish than what we've seen in the other bedrooms. And when looking at the back of the piece, we find out why. So this piece is marked Herder Brothers, a renowned furniture maker and interior decorating firm from the late 19th century. They were responsible for a lot of important interiors of the Gilded Age, including a number of other Vanderbilt homes of the time. You'll also see Seychelles' name written on the back of the mirror and Newport. So this is the only piece of this style found on the third floor. I don't know if there's more to the set, where it came from, or any of that, but it is the one anomaly really in the room. The second thing you may notice is that there are two beds. So the bed on the right with the painted frame originally belonged in bedroom number 18, which is now the dining room. Another thing of note is this above here. So something of note, in all of the original Ogden Codman drawings of the room, he even went as far as to draw exactly what was going on in carved panels above the mirrors. So really little was left up to interpretation whenever it came to his designs. I guess I'll stop over and just show the closet so you can see that. So this bathroom is the one that I discussed before the tour began. So I'll click forward. This photo here. This is the bathroom on the floor. It's directly below this bathroom. So you can see the layout is very similar in design. But you'll notice this one has a sitz bath on the floor below, but not here. And once again, under sink notes found here. This one dating to 1903. So I've now gone, that was the bathroom right here. I've come into the living room. I'll pan around real quick and show. So the first thing I'm going to stop at are these chairs and this sofa. So these were located in the morning room on the first floor at one point, and they were moved up to the third floor when the Preservation Society requested the original furnishings go in the morning room. So they were originally slip covered with fabric matching that of the seat cushions. And you can see them installed in the morning room in this photo. So you can see sofas, the chairs. You see two sofas here, the other sofa is still in this room as well. And then another photo taken in the 1960s, showing them still in place in the morning room. So they were moved up to the third floor sometime between when that last photo was taken in the 1960s and 1971, when the Park Bernay inventory lists this set as being in this room on the third floor. So my assumption is it possibly occurred when the Preservation Society had the original morning room furniture reupholstered. And here is another historic image showing the end tables that you see were also located in the morning room as well. Just to help orient us, again, I like to keep doing that. This is directly above Gertrude Vanderbilt's bedroom on the second floor. So one thing you may notice about this room is the wall coverings they're much more vibrant and of a different material than those in the previous rooms that we just went through. So it appears they have been replaced at some point. When I was going through the Cedar Closet, I came across a small scrap of a damask with a similar design motif to what's on the walls currently. You can see the little bit of dragon here, which is similar to what you see here. So this leads me to believe that this may be a remnant of the original wall coverings. Again, I don't have that confirmed that that's what that is. Across the room here, we have a bust of Cornelius Vanderbilt by the sculptor John Quincy Adams Ward, whose work can also be seen on the lawn outside the Preservation Society's headquarters here in Newport on Bellevue Avenue, with the large statue of Auguste Belmont. So I mentioned it earlier, but the original drawings of this room indicated it was to be a bedroom. However, whether it was ever used as such is uncertain, and there's no extra Davenport bed lying around that would have gone in this space. There aren't the extra pieces that I came across that indicate that they were ever designed for this space. So from the living room, we're heading back out to the hall. I'm gonna stop here. So this door that you see here that's boarded up leads out to a terrace that's above the upper loggia and looks out onto the ocean. So since I created the tour, this piece of plywood's been removed and the door reinstalled. And so you can see how it looks here. So continuing down the hall, this is one of 2 linen closets in this hall. And these are assorted furniture pieces that are not part of the Davenport design collections found in the bedrooms. And then we have another linen closet here. And as we come around the corner here, you will notice that this framing with plastic covering. So this was originally the entrance to the 3rd floor. So when I click forward, so this staircase is what you would have originally taken up from the 2nd floor up to the 3rd and entered there. So this staircase, you actually use it on the in-person tour going from the 1st floor to the 2nd floor on the tour path. So the 3rd floor apartment is not included in the geothermal climate system that's found on the floors below. And so this covering is to help with that, the separation of the systems. So to get us back, so you have an idea of where we are, this to the left, this was the 1st bedroom that we went through after the dining room. Directly ahead, that is the where we started the tour. So we're now going up to the landing where the other 3 guest rooms and the Cedar Closet are located. First, we're going to stop over here. These 2 charming little card tables are located that have beautiful details on them. Now we are going to my favorite object in the entire 3rd floor apartment, which is this rocking horse. So this rocking horse originally belonged to Countess Sesheni, and her daughter, Countess Anthony Zipari, recounts in her memoir that one of the first things she did upon entering the house as a child was, quote, to run up the side stairs to the mezzanine where my mother's rocking horse waited for my first quick ride. Mentioning 2 other objects, she later remarks, quote, that the big round clock, that rocking horse, and that crystal ball were always here for me, important icons of my childhood. They are still here in the house my grandparents built 100 years ago. As for the rocking horse itself, it was made by F.H. Ayres, which was founded in 1864 and based out of London. The rocking horses were sold in Harrods and Selfridges, among other stores, and they were considered the Rolls-Royce of horses. The design of this particular model was patented in 1880, on my birthday no less, which may or may not have some role in how I like it so. You may notice that it was even built with a side saddle, since it was originally for young Gladys rather than one of the boys. So before going to the bedrooms, we are going to stop in the Cedar Closet. So to begin with, to the right, you notice right here, these black shades. So these are the blackout shades that were placed over the windows during World War II. The Cedar Closet itself is filled with pillows and blankets and fabrics that originally went in the various bedrooms up here, as well as textiles from other floors and other former Vanderbilt properties. So you can see these are some of the pillow rolls in the colors of unfaded versions of the wall coverings that we saw. There are also riding boots found up here and a jacket. And the windows that you see, let me step forward. So these windows here, they don't actually go to the outside. They are part of the light tunnel from that skylight I mentioned earlier that illuminates the Lafarge stained glass work over the grand staircase. Another room that really highlights how organized everything was. You can see all of the labels on all of these drawers, indicating what the contents were. And for many of these, they actually still have these contents in them. For instance, let's go to this one here. In this drawer, you can see a little note with content of what is in the chest of drawers. So now we're going to return to this bedroom in a minute, but first we're going to see the final bedroom of the apartment. And so strangely, this bedroom is this bathroom is the only bathroom for the 3 guest rooms on the landing, and it is only accessible through bedroom 11. Looking out the window here, we're now on the other side of the terrace, so you can see the door across the way that was closed off, that I mentioned earlier. And as we are in the final bathroom, I might as well show you the final under sink note for this room, marked 1903. So now we're gonna up the stairs and back in bedroom 11, which again, I discussed bedroom 11 earlier, but now you have a little bit more context for the space. This room was also originally carpeted. By now you know when you see this kind of flooring that it was likely originally carpeted. You can also see along the base of the walls where the carpet was originally secured. It's the only one of the 3 here on this landing that isn't still carpeted. You can also see the glazed cotton walls I discussed earlier, and another piece of Davenport designed furniture. Bedroom 12, which is what this one is, it's the most original of the 3 guest bedrooms on the landing. So you can see this one still has the original wall coverings. We also now have carpet in the room. You can see the terrace from the window here. And another thing you may notice is that the windows are separated near the top. There's this panel here between the 2. And so the reason for that is reflected on the exterior of the house. So this is the upper window and this is the lower window. So it's a clever bit of design that carried through to the interior. Again, just step in front of this so you can see the view out, which was amazing. So the walls in this room were originally a much brighter blue color, which you can see here. So the room likely felt much brighter, more vibrant before the sunlight faded the walls to what you see today. This room also has 2 closets, the only room of this suite of 3 rooms up on this landing to have that. Again, they look very similar to the closets in all of the other rooms. So we're now in the final room of the walkthrough, which is bedroom number 13. Again, the wall coverings of this room were replaced in the early 20th century with the glazed cotton you see here, which appears very similar to that in room number 11. And so we're going to go back out onto the landing and down the stairs. We're going to pause by the elevator here. So the elevator here is where the family would enter and exit the apartment after the house opened as a museum. They would take it up from the basement to the 3rd floor. This is also how we access the 3rd floor apartment anytime that we need to get into it. So I'm going to end the walkthrough with a quote from Countess Zipari. "The 3rd floor is my haven from the world, my spot on the planet to see the ocean, the moon, and the sun. I feel so fortunate to have lived so much of my life in my grandfather's house."
Excellent job, Sebastian.
I
Thank
still
you.
have more. I'm not done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
Excuse me.
good. There's still, I can close it out. So there is some more, a little bit, not a whole lot. So there are, sorry. So what's next? There are still house tours to complete, including the rest of the breakers. So this will do the main tour of the breakers, beneath the breakers, the stables and carriage house, the children's cottage, the main tour of Rosecliff, the main tour of Brighton House at Green Animals, and the carriage house at King's Coe. And as Trudy mentioned at the beginning, I've also received another fellowship here at the Preservation Society, which I am so grateful and so excited about, which will enable me to continue research on the 3rd floor. So in the coming year, she mentioned some of this, we'll be conducting oral histories with individuals to help fill out the social history aspect of the space. And so I've identified numerous institutional archives with material and information on the space. I previously scheduled appointments with a number of these institutions before COVID caused these cancellations. So I'm looking forward to rescheduling those. And additionally, there's more documentation to be completed and discussions in conjunction with Preservation Society staff and outside people on future use ideas. So be sure to come back next year, possibly even in person, to see what more I've uncovered. And I want to end with another thank you to Trudy Cox, Monty Burnham, and Eaddo H and Peter D. Kiernan. This year's been an amazing experience despite all of the challenges, and I am looking forward to the next. I'd also like to thank the caretakers and property staff who all showed such enormous pride for their respective houses and who all went above and beyond making sure the spaces were sparkling clean and looking their best when I came through with my equipment. I couldn't have done it without them. And lastly, thanks to everyone at the Preservation Society, honestly, including those who are no longer there. Everyone was so kind, so accommodating, and so helpful, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you again. And with that, now I'm done.
Well, there are already a lot of questions for you, Sebastian, but I hope that all of you who are watching appreciate how grateful we are that we lucked upon Sebastian, because when we brought him to the Preservation Society in September, we never were thinking about the need for virtual tours. And then COVID made it very apparent that we needed that. And wouldn't you know, Sebastian became our expert. So we were very lucky. You arrived at the right time. And as Sebastian mentioned, he's got a lot of work ahead. So
Yes.
trying to capture all of the buildings and certainly learn more about the third floor. And there is another floor at the Breakers that needs to be researched, and that's the servants' quarters.
Yes.
They are as fascinating as the rooms that you've just seen. So the first question, Sebastian, and there are many, is what is one of the things that stood out to you the most about your research of the third floor?
So one thing that really stood out to me was how overwhelmingly original all the spaces were. And I can't speak to the family's decisions for it, but it definitely shows there are many different ways to approach preservation. And one way is to essentially maintain it as it is. There was little spaces that had been replaced, like the wall covering, so everything was kept very, very original. And because of that, we have kind of just like an artifact frozen in time that is very rare to find, especially in such an important house like the Breakers. So how well they maintained and took care of the space and how original they kept it is, I mean, it's amazing. And really, yeah, that was by far just like, that really stood out.
I think it is safe to say, Sebastian, that you rarely see a site like the third floor completely. It is real to when it existed in the 1890s. Most organizations gussy things up or have to do major repair work. So we can really learn a lot over the next years. One of the questions that I love was, bravo, bravo. If anything shows the impact of the Preservation Society's work, it is this. How has this project, Sebastian Dutton, made you a better art historian?
Well, this space was unlike anything that I've come across before. And also this space, because the family did live in it for 123 years, there aren't photos. There's not a lot of historic photos I can research. Everything required me to start essentially from ground zero with where these things came from. We have some stuff in the archives of the Preservation Society, but much of this space was just uncharted territory. So I had to really learn how to find something when you simply have nothing. Because a lot of the things I've researched in the past, there's a lot out there for it. And with this, I mean, there aren't photos. The Preservation Society has no photos in the archives of like what the space looked like when the family lived in it. I was just, and again, really just starting from nothing and trying to piece it together as much as possible. And it's a huge 125-year long puzzle piece to try and figure out. And so I'm sure you've noticed there are gaps that I hope to fill in over the next year, but it's definitely made me, I feel, a better researcher, having to find new and different ways and different places to find information.
Sebastian, blue wall covering seemed prevalent. Was blue the designer's choice or a favorite color of the Vanderbilt family?
So the Vanderbilt family was very known for red, like that was one of their colors. I don't know, whenever I read, it was originally designed as the boys' floor. So I don't know if that had something, if that came into play with choosing blue colors, but all of the communications with Ogden Codman, there are letters, there's lots of communications. Those I had a research appointment to go read and see a week after all the institutions shut down. So next year, when I do this presentation again, I will hopefully have that information and can provide it, because right now that's one of the pieces that I located, I found, and then a week before I was supposed to go, everything shut down.
There will be another chance.
Yes.
This question comes from someone who is with a small historical society and is wondering or grappling with what and how to post objects from their collection on social media, given that all these treasures and their positions are available to anyone. What are the security implications that the Preservation Society must consider? Very good question, by the way.
So
hard question.
Yeah, it's like, I believe Trudy can probably answer better than me. All of our houses are secured. There are cameras. There are people watching the property. everything's locked up. I mean, to get into the third floor, for one, even if you got into the house right now, you couldn't get up to the third floor just because of the way access is. If you take the elevator up to the third floor, you are not able to even open the door into the third floor. If you try to take the servant staircase up to the third floor, there's an entire wall that's been erected on the stairs that you cannot even get to it. So to some degree, it's protected that way. A guest walking through the house could not simply wander off tour and magically end up on the third floor. So it is, seeing that, I believe, provides quite a bit of security. And a lot of that was because the family was living in there, and obviously you didn't want guests on tours wandering into the family space. So I think that is a lot, I mean, that has a large part of it.
Do you have any idea what happened to the original furnishings from when it was, the quote, the boys' floor?
So what I have now are the Davenport furnishings, which are dated 1907. If they were actually done earlier, that's another one of the big things. I have this gap from 1895 to 1907 that I'm trying to figure out. And so that's one thing. I know the furnishings are original to the floor. I'm assuming they were in there when the boys lived there, but by 1907, all three of those boys would have been of age to have moved out of the house at that point. So I don't know if there were different pieces in there before then. And those are all things that I'm looking to figure out as soon as I can get back in any institution, honestly.
And then another question relative to the furniture. The furniture, though, that you did show us is original to the third floor?
It is, yes. So the furniture in the rooms was designed kind of as a suite. So when you're in one room, all of the furniture in that room, the marble tops are going to match, the design details are going to match, and it all goes together for that room. And there are inventories showing what pieces go in what room.
And then some of the furniture was, of course, kept by the family. So not everything that was there is still in the breakers, but I think we've got a fairly good collection of things that were original to give people, visitors, if we ever do open it up, a sense of what it and how the rooms might have been used.
Absolutely.
Why would several of the rooms been carpeted, given that the house was used only during the summer months with no air conditioning and with a need for coolness?
That is a very good question. The rooms that were carpeted were the guest rooms, which I think is interesting. The rooms that were designated as being the boys' rooms, the brothers' rooms, and those were all designed with the hardwood floors, whereas the rooms that were designated as guest rooms were all carpeted. So I don't know if it has something to do with that. Again, I have to do more research, but I do think it's interesting that that's how kind of the separation between carpeted versus not carpeted was. So I don't know if possibly it was more cost effective to do carpeting and not do an intricate hardwood floor in spaces that were just going to be used for guests, whereas rooms the family were staying in were going to get nicer hardwood flooring. But again, that's all just conjecture.
Do you have any sense of what kind of furniture might have been on the outdoor patio?
I imagine it probably would have been similar to the patio furniture you'd see on the tours of the upper and lower loggia, but as to what exactly was out there, I don't have that. And inventories are rather not, they're super general. Like there are no images included in any of the inventories I've looked at of the space.
Sebastian, this is a personal question to you. There is a person whose sons are watching and they love history and they find you fascinating and they think you have an interesting job. So what did you study to get such a unique job? I mentioned his resume, but why don't you tell us really what you studied and how do you become a Sébastien Dutton if you are a young person trying to be like you?
Right, well, so I love technology. I love historic spaces. I love going places that shouldn't be allowed to go. And so combining those together in grad school, my thesis project was all about digital documentation and interpretation of historic spaces. The site that I chose for my thesis project was Elm Court, which is a Vanderbilt property in Lenox, Massachusetts. It's not open to the public. That was actually the sibling of Cornelius who built the breakers. So his sister Emily's home in Lenox, Massachusetts which is not open to the public. For my thesis, I created a virtual tour similar to this for that space and documented it. And I realized this technology is super useful, not just for museum sites or sites trying to share the space they have, but opening up and creating accessibility for spaces that have never been open to the public, or the public can't access, or they're in some degree of ruins. And so I just pieced all of that together, historic preservation degree, technology, visiting sites, all into one thing, and went forward with that. And then the pandemic happened and suddenly it all became super relevant. So that was really great.
One of the questions, there are so many questions, I'm not going to be able to get to them. I'm sorry, everyone. Were the family members there in the wintertime? And did New Year's Eve become a big event in the Gilded Age?
So what was, did you say New York City or New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve.
Okay. So I have done, so the family portion is something I have not done a lot of the research on the family portion, just because there's not a lot out there that's accessible to me. So that's something I hope to fill in over the next year. As Trudy mentioned, there are oral histories being done, but right now I don't want to speak too much to the family's usage of the space, because I don't know enough about when they were there and how they stayed to speak knowledgeably. So I don't want to misspeak on any of that.
Okay. And we'll do another talk someday about Gilded Age New Year's Eves and how they were spent. That's a good topic, I think. Let's see. Were there hidden hallways for the servants? We know this answer, but it's been asked, so we'll let you answer.
So the interesting thing about the third floor apartment is that it's self-contained, and then you have that one entrance into the servant space, which is where the tour started. So there aren't any passageways within the third floor apartment itself. In other parts of the house, there are passages for servants, but within this third floor self-contained apartment unit, that door separates all the servant spaces of the third floor and the apartment. So there are no hidden hallways. Like on the tour, you saw everything within that space, every room. I may have skipped a couple of the closets, but you saw every single space in it, and there weren't any passages or anything in that particular portion of the house.
And then can you talk a little bit more about what was in the closets at over time, Sebastian?
Yeah, so one of the closets, the one that I showed you the labels, there were lots of different family photo albums and newspapers and different things relating to the house and the family that were stored in that space, that you can tell simply because the drawers are labeled as such. A lot of the other closets still have hangers in them. Some of them still have fabrics, so curtain pieces, wall sconces that have been removed. But that's what I have to go off of, is what is still remaining in there, and then remnants of the family that lived there before, like labels and things like that.
So we are running out of time, and one of the questions is, when will the third floor be open for in-person tours? And I think the best way to answer that is right now we are focused, with the help of Sebastian and with the help of others, on really trying to understand more about that phenomenal space. It's close to 12,000 square feet of space, and you've already seen how truly elegant it is, and the fact that it has been, it's just a wonderful bell jar of time of more than 100+ years. So we still need to do some research. Some oral histories are coming up, and then we will make some decisions about how best to use the space in the future. And I hope everybody gets a chance to see the third floor and also the servants' quarters, which are fascinating. But I really thank you, Sebastian. Let's give him a round of applause, because you've done some phenomenally important first steps in the research about this big space. And we hope that we can talk more about it in the future. So thank you all very much for joining us, and tune in on August 27th, when we will hear from Keith Stokes and Teresa Stokes, Power, Privilege, and Preservation, the History of African-American Civil Rights in Newport, Rhode Island. Both great, great African-American historians. So join us then, and thank you all very much for being with us tonight. Great job, Sebastian.
Thank you
did a
so
great
much.
job.